Ever wish you had someone to talk to anytime, anywhere, no matter what you're going through? Meet PsychPal, your 24/7 AI companion designed to help you process your thoughts, calm your mind, and keep you moving forward. Chat anytime during a panic attack, on a restless night, or just when you need to vent. Prefer talking instead of typing? Try voice journaling. PsychPal listens, transcribes, and truly understands. You can even upload screenshots of tough conversations and it'll help you unpack how they made you feel. PsychPal keeps life organized too. It can add appointments to your calendar, track your mood, and even summarize your sessions for your therapist so you'll never lose progress. Plus, built in crisis resources are always just one click away. It's a privacy first, constantly evolving, made to complement your professional care, not replace it. Ready to try it out? Head over to the link in this episode and use my code Pete at checkout to get 20% off your first month subscription to PsychPal. PsychPal, because your mind deserves a companion too. There we go. I think that's the one I like. We got it. We got it. Boom.
That's how you want less. I don't want to be more, but you know I will not die. You can try and no more, just so you can kill my try. All the times that I've sold, but still got my pedal through the metal. Told you I'll be immortal. That's how you want less. I don't want to be normal, so you can stay inside. That's why they say that you're local. You see, this world is mine. I'm not even your hope for them time. I'm taking more down load, and I will show them one more. So that's how you want last time. I don't know what's so hard. Can you get it through your mind?
Welcome into another exciting episode of Peak for Anxiety. My guest today is a clinical psychologist who helps people build sustainable self-care without burnout or guilt. Please welcome in Matthew Campbell. Matthew, welcome in.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
So, Matthew, why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about yourself? Give them a little feel for who you are.
Sure. As you said, I'm a psychologist. I've been working in private practice for about 23 years. I was looking the other day. So, I'm a psychologist by profession, husband and father of four boys. Kind of maybe the most meaningful part. But yeah, so I do. I'm in psychology, and I appreciate you having me on. I work in a clinical setting, so I'm working with people on a variety of different issues they're coming in with. Anxiety is probably, I would say, the most frequent,
Mm-hmm.
um, challenge issue that I work with people on. Uh, I have, along with guy Dr. Josh Semko, put together a workbook. Something that was a passion of mine. That came along due to my clinical work and learning from those I worked with. How essential taking care of our foundation is, and we titled it our Primal Five. Just focusing on some just basic essential human needs that in today's world have become more challenging to attend to and work on, but are really, really, really essential for our emotional functioning.
I like the title though. Primal 5 is a really cool one. I think it's a really great title. I think it
Thank you.
covers exactly what you're trying to do. So has psychology always been a big thing for you, or is it something that you've kind of got into? Because a lot of people you find were doing something else and then get into this field, or some people that are in the field are like starts like therapy, go into some like other different directions of things. So which is it though? Have this always been something you've been passionate about all the time?
Yeah, I was really lucky. I was really lucky because I didn't have to do a career transition, although that can be a great thing, I guess, if you're not finding fulfillment in what you're doing. But no, I was
Yeah.
really, really fortunate. I came from a family of very socially conscious. My mom is 91 and still works at a nonprofit agency.
That's awesome though.
Yeah, so really sensitized to that at an early age. Again, just lucky. I went into undergrad and psychology was my major, and yeah, I've loved it. I've absolutely loved it. It's very meaningful work.
So are there any areas of psychology that really excite you? Because it's such a big topic. So is there anything like you like to specialize in? Any kind of things you really get excited about? Like you start meeting people with different things. You're like, okay, they hit these certain subjects. You're like, oh yeah, I'm ready for this one. I love this.
Well, absolutely. I actually love the variety
Hmm.
that people present. Really love. I would have a harder time, I think, being very specialized.
Yeah.
That would be more of a challenge for me. You know, we as humans are endlessly fascinating, and so getting to work with people, I mean, and it's certainly an honor for people to trust you and work with you, but having different things and working with people is really, really fulfilling. I think if I was taking a cookbook approach and dealing, working with people on the same thing day after day, that might burn me out.
No, I hear you. That's why with this show, I try and find the most interesting people. I've had like this morning alone, we've had about four different guests, and you're the fifth one. In the one I had before was a dominatrix that's now a life coach. I was just like, yeah, you're gonna have to explain to me how we got from point A to point B on this subject there alone, you know.
That's not me.
But you know what I'm saying though, I like that. I'm the same way though. I like the variety of things. You know, I try to keep it interesting. You know, keep bringing different people all the time from different walks of life. You know, holistically or people that are on the clinical side like you're on. You know, and things like that too. I like to keep it interesting just because it's just interesting to me too. Because I'm always curious to learn new things. So why do you feel that like we don't talk about our mental health enough? I mean, everybody keeps trying to tell me we do, but I feel like we're not talking enough.
Right. I think some of it's age
Hmm.
related. I think that younger folks are much more open.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I don't think that's always the case, but I think generally speaking, those who grew up um, with mental health as a thing, as something that's attended to, I think that it has positive and negative effects. But I think that certainly one of the positives is more of an openness.
Hmm.
But I also think, and to kind of, in my experience in terms of an increased acceptance, I live and practice in Oxford, Mississippi.
Okay.
And when I came in here to Oxford and set up my practice, like I said, a little over 20 years ago, there were about, I think, five of us of different, PhDs, LPCs, LCSWs, so different training backgrounds, but that were doing therapy in town. About six of us, and you had to really build a practice.
Hmm.
We probably have, I would say, 25 people maybe who do it full time here in town now. A lot of people who do it part time, and it's tough to refer people because people are so full with their client load. So I definitely think there's been an increase in the acceptance of mental health care. I still think, however, to your point, I think there are a number of things. I think that first of all, you have the general aspect of, there's people who that's just soft,
Hmm.
and that's just kind of a weakness, and maybe even culturally there's a resistance. And I also think that there's been a pushback of late that perhaps too many things are being attributed to mental health problems. And I think that some people may perceive that it's shirking of responsibility, is my sense.
Yeah, no, I get that though. I feel like a lot of people use it as a scapegoat some ways too. They're like, oh, they have mental health issues, but a lot of people don't even know what those things are. Most people just think anxiety, depression, and some of those other things like that are just it. But that's if you really dig into it, there's so many other things that people haven't even touched the surface level on. You know, if you get to like borderline personality disorder and you just keep going further, there's some pretty wild ones out there that'll take you for a run for your money. The things that just people deal with on a daily basis, and I think a lot of times when you talk to a lot of people, I feel like a lot of them don't know enough, and with the internet, the problem is that you have access to information, but are you getting access to the correct information, And then that's what you have to fight against too, is people are out there kind of Googling things, but then they're getting the wrong information, and then the wrong information gets spread, and it's just it's a constant battle, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I think that, and maybe, well, probably this kind of goes across the treatment areas and probably medicine as well, as I think you can have so much overlap
Yeah.
between symptoms
Uh-huh.
that it's so easy if you just take a checklist approach and you say, well, I have X, Y, and Z, then you
Yeah.
can become convinced you have a certain diagnosis. I always tell people The last criteria for every diagnostic category is that it's not otherwise um, caused by X, Y, and Z issues. And so you always have to consider, is there something else that accounts for symptoms?
Yeah, yeah. Listen, I tell people to stop WebMDing basically because remember when that came out, everybody thought they had cancer and all these other weird things. Well, I think I got cancer based on what they're reading. It's like, no, these are like symptoms that you would have that fall into that category. Doesn't mean you have it because with BPD and borderline, they're so close together. Except
Yes.
for BPD is a little bit wider, when it comes to the range of things that you're dealing with. I think a lot of people get those mixed up a lot of times as well. And a lot of people don't even know what borderline personality disorder even was. I know I didn't know at first when I started this show. I started learning more things, and then I met people that have these different conditions. So I go research a little bit about them, and I started exploring like a lot of really interesting avenues. And ever since then, we're 300 interviews later. I've had a lot of people on here. We've talked about pretty much everything I can think of. And there's some other things I've never even heard of that have showed up recently too, and things like that too. So it's always interesting when I get people to come in because you're just curious to know what their stories are, the things they're dealing with, the way that they've been going about it. And I feel like a lot of people when they start really talking about it they get scrutinized because people don't know how to handle a lot of conversations, suicide being one of them, grief being another one of them, like people are just not equipped for certain those conversations. Would you not agree?
Well, sure. Sure. I mean, all of those are very, very difficult. And in fairness, I think that, there's not one way to approach those, and
Hmm.
it often depends on the person. um, and what they're looking for, what would be helpful for them to hear. And even as someone who practices in this field, you definitely learn that there's not a cookie cutter one way approach. It really has to be uh, done in such a way that is most useful to a person that they could hear best. And those are quite challenging.
Yeah. So, Matthew, I wanted to ask you though, you did mention you have kids. Do you have open conversations about mental health and like emotionally regulating them, like explaining what some of the feelings are they're having? Is that an open conversation you guys have with them at all?
No. One 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 thing you learn, you're gonna learn it by experience at some point, is you are their dad. You are not their
Yeah.
therapist. And it's that is an exceptionally important role of being a father, and you don't need to try to be anything else. And so I think that yeah, I mean, I only speaking for myself, but there's certainly been times that I've tried some of these things. I used to joke that I even would tell my kids sometimes, people pay me for this, but of course, I'm their dad,
Yeah.
and I will take that 10 times out of 10. But no, I don't impart much of that at home.
Yeah. Is there a reason? Do you suggest people have conversations early on, given that the rates that suicide rates in younger gentlemen, 10 to 14, are on the rise? Do you think that it's an open conversation they may need to start having, or something similar like dialogue about it?
I mean, I think that there are a lot of variables at play there. And
Yeah.
again, things are so individually dependent. I definitely think the one thing, without question, would be some emotional literacy, and trying to help with the acceptance of different emotional experiences. I think that can be quite helpful. But I also think we need to look at other variables that are at play, and perhaps easiest to identify would be media,
Mm-hmm.
and what
One
impact that
hundred percent.
has. So I definitely think that having some emotional awareness is extremely important. I think that creating an environment where it's okay for that to be reported or discussed, that's great. But I also think that we just need to be really attentive to other things that are affecting kids these days.
Yeah, social media definitely is one of them. Me and a good friend of mine, Uncle Jimmy, we had a discussion this past Wednesday. We get together every week and discuss things. And social media was the topic that we had picked. Now, during the interview, Jimmy and I were discussing during this conversation we were having. He had mentioned that he was like, he pulled up some percentage numbers. I don't remember the exact percentages, but a lot of them were saying that kids reported saying that social media had a negative effect on them. Is this a concern for you though with your children too? Like, because I know a lot of people get like always make fun of people for limiting their amount of how much they interact with the internet, but that's a good thing, honestly. With the way social media is, the way that they're just connecting with who knows out there, I think it's a really good thing to limit the amount of time they spend on there until they're to their age, or they're an adult to make that decision for themselves. Because a lot of times, when you get on the internet, you don't know who you're interacting with. Like Roblox, for example, had that situation where they had a lot of predators that were secretly basically in the game asking these younger kids questions, and these kids don't know what they're looking at. They just know, hey, this is my friend asking me a question of where I'm from. You know what I mean? Just things like that too. It's got to be a scarier time now than when we were kids, man. Because like we had AOL, that was our closest thing, half the time we spend most of the time outside hanging out. But nowadays you can't do that anymore. Now, like most times you have to worry about somebody coming by and trying to snatch your kid. But now the internet making it even worse because now you have all these people that have more access to these younger kids and things like that as well. And then what are they watching on there? Because then they start seeing these things and we're giving them wrong messages about things. So you have somebody come on and start saying all these hateful things about women, or you know what I mean? These different skewed views on what is going on, like what are they consuming these days? Is my biggest concern. And it really worries me though, because with them mixing in with all these hateful people, things like that, it's like they're still young. They don't know better. They don't know what's going on out there, and some of that stuff they don't need to be seeing a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, that's you used the word there. It's one of the I mentioned our primal five. It's one of the pillars that we describe the five different areas as pillars. And you mentioned consumption and
Hmm.
consumption in our work in the workbook, as well as an app that I've put together. That's a big one. That's a very very big one. Our consumption is our fuel. Our consumption affects us in every way, and I think that we naturally think of consumption as physical consumption, food and drink, and any variety of physical consumptions, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But digital consumption is profoundly important. Whether it's the news, which can be toxic, pornography, but then the other has to do with the digital media, with social media, with video games, as you described. And so there's a book that quite well known at this point, Jonathan Haidt, um, put out there. He wrote called The Anxious Generation, and he, Dr. Haidt, he talks about social media in particular and how rates in teenagers and particularly females has doubled. Suicidality, suicidal behavior, anxiety, and depression really since the explosion of social media. Really, so Dr. Haidt puts 2 hours of screen time as in his research what is found to be kind of the tipping point for social media screen exposure in all the way up till 18 years old.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we know, or where we are right now is we really want to try to, not go over 2 hours. Really, the only group that was didn't seem to have as strong as an effect is kids who are coming into it with a really high level of self-confidence. They don't seem to have quite the same negative effect.
Yeah, because they have the high confidence level. They're not letting things bother them. My concern would be the other side, the ones that have the low self esteem, and then they go to post something, and then somebody just starts attacking them, of any age range, mind you, at this point, because social media gives us that access. And things like that too. But I think that's a really great point he brought up, though, yeah, especially females, because think about it, all these different things that are on there, these sexual pictures that make these people that sexualize these women. What message are we sending to these young ladies? Like, this is what you're supposed to look like, get attention from boys, when it really shouldn't be like that. It's more, it should be more different factors than just what you're seeing on there. And it's to me at times it's kind of frustrating because I have three daughters of my own, and that was my biggest concern. It's like, what message are they getting? while they're seeing this, and I was the one that like watched them, literally watched what they were doing on everything, including TikTok was one of them. When my oldest one was on there, she had put something up and I had a conversation with her. I was like, you can't do that because, what the message you're sending out to people is, it's just not right. You can't do that because, like you don't know who's watching these things. And that's the scary part of it all, depending on what it is. Even some of these other video games I've played, there's people you hear them say the most horrible things to these kids, and all they're doing is just, hey, listen, I'm playing a game. This is cool. I can talk to other people. Yeah, that shouldn't be happening because some of these people shouldn't be allowed to talk to anybody under the age 18 because the things they're saying to them are just horrible. Like it's quite honest, disgusting at times. Because there was a post where I was watching. This girl had a video where she was excited. Oh, I'm getting ready for my prom or something. She was getting ready for some kind of dance, and these guys in the comments are saying the most disgusting things ever. I'm like, they're old enough to be like grown men are saying things to this girl like, "Hey, your dress would look good on my floor," and it's like, no, we can't allow this. And then when it was like brought to like the social media people, they're like, "Oh, what do you want us to do? Police your own site? What do you mean you can't allow these kind of things to be happening? What are you doing? You're letting these poor girls get being talked to by these grown men in a weird way. That's just not good for them."
It can attract the worst. Absolutely. And I mean, anytime, just with human behavior, anytime that we have anonymity, and we can hide behind a screen, you're going to get the worst of behavior oftentimes. And so I think that with kids, as difficult as it is, it's difficult for a variety of reasons to really monitor that. One is the amazing constant accessibility that they have to these things. They also have grown up with them.
Yeah.
And so for someone who's in my generation, obviously we can be more. I've got you by several years, but I have most of my life was spent without this level of technology, and so I have a reference point that's much more of a reference point than particularly young folks these days. Is that's what they grew up with. I was talking to a kid about it who was having really negative effects. You got the comparison effect. You have
Hmm.
how much time's being spent on it. You have the FOMO aspect.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and some of these things that I can't comprehend is why they have maps that show where you are. That's it's just bizarre to me on every level.
Mhm.
But nevertheless, speaking with this young person and talking about they acknowledge negative effects from social media, and I asked them, they had full recognition of that, and they said that's all I know. It's all I know is social media and access, and I know it has a negative effect, but I still am afraid I'm not going to know something or miss out. And that's, I thought that was really insightful. It's when it's all
You know,
doing something different, it's scary.
it is though, because you're getting to talk to the youth as well, so you're getting a better mindset of what their thought process is going through these things. Well, I know that it's bad for me, but at the same time, that FOMO kicks in, the fear of missing out, basically. And then if you think about it, with all the different apps and all the dings, and like I literally turn my phone on silent most days because my phone goes off constantly because I post my stuff everywhere, but I don't stay on it long enough for a lot of them. I think TikTok's the most active one I am on though, but that's it really. But you get a lot of those like 10,000 different invites. Oh, you're gonna miss on this. You're gonna miss out on that. Da 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 da. And it's
Yeah,
so hard to balance all that kind of stuff, especially for them. It's like they're trying to be a part of they want to fit in with their friends, but then I'm missing out on things. So now the fear of fear of missing out is coming through, and like you said though, they said they know it's a negative effect, but still they're coming back for more, and it's like, oh no, it's hard though because with all these different apps now, it's like trying to monitor what they're doing on the internet these days is just next to impossible because there's so many different ways to get to someone. Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, X I think honestly should just be completely cut off to anybody under the age 18. Honestly, anybody that's under 18 that's on X should not be there because there's just things on there they post. It's just like it's a free for all, man. It's a scary place to be. And I'm an adult. I'm 40 years old. I can tell you right now. Even I'm like, nope, I'm good. I don't want nothing to do with this. I'm out of here.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that the film, A Social Dilemma, or The Social Dilemma, they really did a great job of pointing out that we are, um, we are the product. We are not the consumer with social
Hmm.
media. We are being consumed by it. And many years ago, before social media became such a phenomenon, I mean, such a part of life for us, I always thought of casinos as being the best at applying psychological principles to manipulate human behavior, to keep us at the tables, to do, all sorts of different things to really encourage betting. And because obviously, the longer you bet, the more they're going to win.
Hmm.
And so, but they have been far outpaced by social media. I mean, they have us down. I one time did an experiment of sorts. I logged out of YouTube, and so logged out of everything basically on my computer, and I got on to back onto YouTube without, like I said, being logged in. And my little experiment was I punched in, or I typed in four of my favorite songs by different artists, and I typed those in, and because I wanted to see what the algorithm would do with that information, and it was frightening how well they nailed me.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about the same genre. They hit me on some things, just nailed what I like in genres that I hadn't even looked up. And so this stuff is we are putty in its hands. Really have to limit our time and exposure.
No, I think you have a really good point there. I do. A lot of people need to really limit their time. I do. I myself, I do because I pull away and I'll call it unplugging. So I'll turn my phone off at a certain point. I'll just turn the notifications off and I'll go do something. Either be go outside or I'll go read a book or something else productive other than trying to be there because that, like I said, that whole FOMO thing will start kicking in. But if I can't hear the notifications, I don't even notice it. And then people are like, "Well, where you at?" Anywhere but here, apparently. So and it's so much better because it'll message you big time. I know it did for me for a while, like when my depression was really bad. Yeah, I'd sit there and doom scroll, and I'm just like, nope, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. I'm done. I can't. So like unplugging, it was the greatest experience ever. I literally did an experiment myself. I did a 5-day experiment. I cut off social media for 5 days. I literally only
Hmm.
recorded the show, did that. That's it. The only contact I had was maybe a few messages to somebody, talking to my guests or whatever, because I was doing a live show at the time. So, I only did the live episodes. After that, I cut off and I just went and did something else. Watch a movie, did anything other than be anywhere on a social media, not even play a game online for 5 days. And it was the greatest experience of my life ever because I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything, with all those different app invites. Oh, you're missing this, you're missing that, and the people I need to get a hold of me could get a hold of me, obviously, because, do not disturb is a great thing on your phone. You can put it on so only people's calls you need to come through can come through. I did anything but any of those things, like be on social media, play around on there, play games online. I literally just kind of unplugged from it, just did some other things, read a book. I actually ended up reading a breast cancer memoir for one guest I had on the show. So I ended up reading her memoir, So I was reading that while then I watched a couple movies, went took the dogs for a walk, stuff like anything I could do but those things that fell in it, it was the greatest thing ever, And now when I have conversations with people, I'll go like this, take my phone, I'll put it screen down so I can't even see it. So if somebody starts talking to me, doesn't matter what I'm doing, if it's not like something I need to do right that moment, I literally put it down screen side down. I don't even look at it the rest of the time I'm talking to somebody until the conversation ends. Because I've noticed that if I don't pay attention to what they're saying. And that's just not fair to them. Like, if you're having a conversation, somebody's right in front of you, you might as well, engage them. They're sitting right there. It's very rude not to pay attention. So unless I'm doing something that really is important, like something I had to finish, really, hey, listen, can you give me a quick second? Let me finish this, and then the screen goes down right away. And then after that, I don't even. Sometimes I'll even forget my phone's even sitting there, walk off and do some other stuff. And it's so much great. It's so great because I don't give it that control anymore. It doesn't have my full attention unless it's absolutely something important, or things like that, or somebody's messaging me and I'm talking to a friend about something else. That's the only time I'm really there. But other than that, I just kind of like I turn it on silent a lot of times. I forget it's on silent sometimes too. I'm like, oops, sorry, my bad, I missed out. And then like I said though, if it's on silent though, there's ways to get a hold of me if people really need to get a hold of me. But it's like obviously it wasn't that important if I'm not getting the message. You know what I mean? Like I don't have that fear of missing anything, because I don't let it control me like a lot of people do, and that's the hardest part too. Like, I know recently they were talking about like video game addictions. I'm like, that's real. Have you seen these people that stream? Some of these guys, they're on there for like 8, 9 hours a day, like a day doing this. And I'm just, there's no way. I'm like, this is insane. Like, you guys are crazy. Like
I've
all
worked
the
with
time.
people who it's been more than that. Yeah, it's they are addictive. But I think that to the point of what you were describing about when you took a sabbatical of sorts, off of the
Hmm.
media sources. One of the things, like, again, just like the primal aspects, is that we are made to do certain things, like our body, like our world has changed so much, in terms of, technology and science, all these different things that in many ways are wonderful. But what it has done is taken us away from these ways that our bodies are the same as our ancestors. They're made to do
Hmm.
certain things. But these other things have, they make it a lot easier to not do those things. Our ancestors had to do these things to survive. We have to choose to do them. And so I was thinking about it when you were describing that as, one of my sons, he went to a camp a few summers ago, and at the camp they turn in their phone when they get there, and they're in a
Hmm.
cabin, and doing activities outside with other kids their age. And I just remember he came back after that week and a half, and he was just great mood, excited, feeling good. He even made the statement when when I picked him up and we got back to the house. He said, I'm not playing video games anymore." And he had benefited. He had lived in a way that we were made to be. That he
Yeah.
was around other people. He was outside. He was moving. He had a consistent bedtime and wake time, and he didn't have, he was consuming, bringing in good stuff. But I just thought it was such a great example, because then he gets back to his real world, his daily life, and then those difficulties come in. The challenges is that all his buddies now are playing video games today, and that's
Hmm.
that's a way to connect with them in a very easy, convenient way. And so he's up there, and of course that can be hours, and such. And so it's more challenging. We have a lot of things that disrupt our sleep. We have a lot of sugary processed foods that feel a lot
Yes.
better to eat
Yeah.
immediately. We weren't
Yeah.
made for that. We have a lot of times that we spend indoors in climate controlled environments and cushy chairs. And there's so many things that make it more challenging. Even what you and I are doing right here, we can contact each other on, these different, video approaches, but we're not sharing the same space with humans as much, because honestly, in the moment, in this present moment, we don't have to, but we do pay the price for that in the long term.
Yeah, yeah, and it's hard though because like I said, his friends are there though hanging out. I get the whole thing. You want to hang out with the boys, you want to do something, but it's like you got to set limits for yourself though too. And that's the hardest part. It's like you get so like caught into these games that get you going for hours, doing whatever the task is at hand. But then it's like you don't take time to go outside and enjoy air and ground, and don't go outside touch the grass. I know a lot of people say a lot of terms for gamers. We like to say touch grass. Have you touched
Right.
grass today? Because these people get, we call them super sweaty and all these other weird terms we all come up with. But, I make it an effort to go outside though, at least for an hour a day and sit out in the sun because I'm here in Texas. So it's nice, and
Hmm.
just be outside for a bit, enjoy the fresh air, and things like that too, or walk the dogs and things like that is what I would do normally. Or go for a walk, it's great because I have diabetes. So like just a walk around the block or two, it helps, like, makes a significant change. Like I'll check my numbers, see where I'm at, grab some water and just go out. I'll pop an earpiece or whatever, listen to some music, listen to another podcast. Whatever I'm doing something actively. I go to the gym regularly now too. It's a great stress reliever and I love it, because I'm on my way to 285 deadlifting. So I'm at 210 now. So I'm working my way there a little. So I'm setting goals of doing other things besides, but I bulk record the show. And then from there, the rest of my week is pretty much open for me to do whatever else I need to do. And I focus on doing something else other than this. So like I'll go through the recording, I'll go through the editing process usually on the weekend, but during the week, the rest of the week, I usually work an overnight job anyway. So I'm up all night. So I'll prioritize my sleep now versus before I wasn't doing it. And then people could notice they were like, Pete, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I was lying to people constantly about it because I wasn't. I wasn't sleeping at all. I was recording this show 5 days a week. Now I've got a different schedule set up and makes more sense. I prioritize everything else, get it done. And then the rest of the week, I prioritize my self care, like I'll go outside, enjoy the weather, do something else. I've got a whole stack of books I've been working my way through. I'm currently reading a non-released copy of a book right now that I got an advanced copy of, so I've been really enjoying it too, things like that. So I'm trying to do something else other than be on any kind of social media app, a video game, or anything else, and I try to go outside more often to, get in the sun a little bit, because the fresh air helps you ground and things like that too. And since I started the show, I've taken a big change of way I look at things. Like I did a bunch of self reflecting this past year and looked at the things I've done, accepted my own fault and things, and it's changed the way I interact with people. Like my daughters and I didn't have a great relationship since me and my wife, my ex are split up and they live with her. My only way to connect with them is right now is through, we text each other because they're in another state, but I text him, but I don't overload him. You know what I mean? Like we have a conversation for a little bit, and then we'll walk away from the conversation and we'll come back to it later. But I don't sit there and prioritize, being on my phone as much as possible. But to talk to them, okay, priority there. But other than that, I'll be out doing like something else. I try and get out, see the world. Even if it's just sitting at the park and just letting the air, just feel the air and everything else. I try and do more things more active, be more active for myself, because then, since I'm diabetic anyways, it's good for me to get the exercise and all these other things. I have all these other challenges I deal with too. So I do a lot of juggling of things. But when the thing you mentioned, food, was an interesting topic because we got into that conversation with somebody, actually two guests. One of them, we were talking about the things they put in your food these days. And she and I had gotten into a whole hour long conversation about this whole thing. It's just horrible if you think about the things they're putting in there and all the stuff they're adding in there, and and how sugar is really addictive too, and it's loaded in a lot of these stuff. Like if you look at like Mountain Dew, go look at a bottle, man, because where it's at now, it's like 79 grams of sugar. Whoo, that's a lot of sugar to be putting in your system there. And I was like, you watch these people consume it at a rapid rate, and you're just like, oh my god, this is insane. Like how much of that they're drinking and stuff like that. But once you cut out some of that stuff, you'll notice the difference. Like, I did another experiment where I stopped even entertaining fast food for a week and I tried it again just one time. And I was like, nope, I don't like that feeling anymore. I could do healthier options at home. Like, okay, so whatever I'm craving, okay, well, I'm craving tacos. So I went and I made it a mission to go out and make my own food, go to the store, get the items and come back and make it myself versus going to get it somewhere already pre-made. And I already noticed the changes already. I felt a lot better. My moods were better. My mental health was better. And a lot of people don't realize a lot of those things affected as well. Like I'm getting more sleep now because I prioritize that as well. Because I did have a guest come on. She's actually works at the FBI. She's a sleep doctor, but she was giving me hell about it too. She's like, you need to sleep more. And she's like, I'm serious. She's like, on the camera giving me a hard time, and rightfully so. She should have, because I wasn't taking care of myself. But now I prioritize my self care and things like that too, and and stuff like that as well because it's important for people to do that.
Well, and I think that, with what you were saying, again, broadly speaking, um, when we focus on the short term, and what kind of feels best right now, whether it's, the minimize pain, maximize pleasure, when
Hmm.
we're based on that, or when our behavior is really emotionally driven, that's where we get into trouble.
Yeah.
That's where we're gonna have a hard time. And these things that you were just describing, whether it was your sugar intake, these different things, your sleep. You said something. I think you were referring to fast food, and you were saying, I think you stopped it. I think you said 5 to
Yeah.
7
I took a
days.
week off from it just to see what
Hmm.
the
Well,
changes overall for me.
right, and then what you said, and was really really important, is that then when you reintroduced it after that time, it tasted different. You didn't like it, and that's one of the challenges that we have with self care.
Hmm.
These basics or the foundations is that we are so accustomed to being depleted. We are so accustomed to feeling this way. After all we have to compare our experience or how we're doing is what we have experienced. We can't compare it to someone else's, like how it felt for them. We can't know that. So the thing is, without being healthy in one of these, or more, hopefully more of these areas, we don't really know. We don't really fully appreciate being sleep deprived if that's our normal. We
Yeah.
don't really appreciate having a processed food diet all the time. No, none of us are going to be perfect. I mean, we're gonna have that every once in a while, and that's just
Oh
part
yeah,
of
no,
it.
I get that. And I love how you add that in too, because we're not saying that. We're saying, it's okay to consume it once in a while, but paying really close attention to what you're intaking is a really good thing too, though, because you just notice the changes of how you feel differently. Choose water over sodas. You'll feel a hell of a lot different after a little bit of while. It may take a little bit, but you'll feel a lot better. You'll notice that your energy levels go up and you don't crash as much and things like that too. And with the God, let's not even get started with the energy drinks. I had a really bad consumption of those for a while too. And it was like every day I'd have one, and people were like, "Yeah, Pete, I think you need to cut down a little bit." So, and I eventually cut some of those out too. I'll have them once in a while if I need a little pick me up or whatever. But I've reduced the consumption amount of what I was doing because I was having a really bad run with those. I was having them like every day, maybe twice a day, because, like I said, I wasn't sleeping. So I'm trying to look for something to give me that boost, and things like that. And it was like my consumption was outrageous at the time. But, since then I've cut back on it. Now I'm sleeping more. I'm replacing the caffeine with sleep, and the sleep's helping more, and I'm feeling better, and people are noticing I feel better,
Mhm.
and things like that too. So it's been a lot of things that I'm learning along the way as I go, but it's for the better though.
Absolutely. I mean, and the more we can stick with it, the more we realize what it feels to live in a way that fits with what we're made, how we're made, and I think that a lot of times people can be a little overly judgmental
Hmm.
of it's because these are things that you know may not know all the details or what can help and things like that, but we know these things, sunlight, sleep, social connection, moving our bodies, watching what we put in our minds, bodies. We understand those. And so I think that sometimes people can be judgy that when people aren't doing them. But the reality again is that we have so many choices in
Hmm.
front of us all the time. And just being humans, if we're not really intentional, if we're not really effortful, we're going to take the short term option. We're going to take the, push that easy button. And there are more easy buttons now than there have ever been. So yeah, it takes a lot of intention and a lot of effort to make decisions that are going to have a huge effect on us, positive effect in the long run.
Definitely. So, Matthew, before we start wrapping up this episode, I'm going to ask you two questions. Now, I've asked all my guests these two questions, and it's been really fun. Okay. So, the first
All right.
question for you, bud, all right, is if your mental health had a song, what would you say that song would be?
Hmm. That's a
Th-
tough one.
This is
That's a
always a
tough
fun
one.
question
What
for people.
what would my mental health be? Well, Eh, it's gonna be something from Springsteen because that's my
Okay.
guy.
Okay. Bruce is
Um,
good.
the most I'll say this, the most emotionally resonant song, of his that actually was featured in the recent film was "My Father's House." But, I hate to tag that one for myself because it's a pretty, depressing, morose song, although it's a really good one.
Yeah, no, no. It's always interesting though when you ask me that question because music is a big thing for me. So like that's usually what I'm doing. If I'm listening to something, I'm listening to music, all sorts of kinds, everything else. So I thought it was a fun question somebody else had asked me when I had interviewed them on the show. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take a run with this and see what happens. And so far we've had some pretty fun responses with it though. But my next question for you, and the reason I start this podcast was that if you could break the stigma about mental health. Now, when I ask you this question, I'm asking you from the aspect of what is the one thing you want people to stop believing?
About mental health?
Yeah, that anything incorrect that you feel like they're, like the stigma that people have about it. Like, what is one thing you want to tell people? Hey, listen, this may not be right, but this is true.
Gosh, I think that the main thing, your podcast is Heat versus Anxiety. I would really what I would really the misconception that I would want people to or would want to address, would want to be different is that, these things aren't choices. And we do make choices with our behaviors. But oftentimes, maybe especially with anxiety, people treat it like a logic problem. they treat it as if it's something that a person with anxiety is choosing to do these things, right? They're choosing to
Hmm.
be anxious. They get on an airplane and they're choosing that feeling. The reality is people with anxiety, broadly speaking, they know that these are low probability things. They, or they like someone with obsessive compulsive disorder, the great majority know that this is not logical, that this is not actually, making them safe or doing whatever. But that emotional drive has such a profound effect on us. And that these, so I think a lot of times people can make it harder for folks with anxiety because, like the classic advice, don't worry, "Oh,
Exactly.
I've
Yeah.
never thought of that before." But there's this aspect of it where it's like this is an intentional thing, like I'm logically deducing this. No, it's an emotionally driven, very challenging thing, and definitely we can improve it, but if it were only as simple as a math problem.
Matthew, I absolutely love that because that's what I tell people a lot of times too. Like people are always like, "Hey, calm down." Well, that's great. I'm glad that's some advice. Great advice for you, but this is not how it works. But
Sure,
you,
why didn't I
but
think
you
of
can
that?
tell, people that don't understand it versus people that get it. Because when that response comes out, it's things like that. But Matthew, thank you so much for coming to hang out with me, man. I really appreciate it. I had a really great time with you. Before I start signing off, did you want to let people know where they can find you? If anybody's in the Mississippi area that might want to reach out to you, do you want to plug your website for them?
Well, sure, yeah. Just and so far as the workbook and the app
Yeah,
we're going to
definitely.
release, focusing on again our Primal 5, and that's actually the website, our Primal 5 with the number 5.com, and we're finishing up touching up that website where, well, you can subscribe to the newsletter, obviously the Amazon link for the workbooks there, the app link will be there. We'll have a quiz, kind of helping people get a sense of where they are in taking care of these basic aspects to get our functioning, put us on the strongest foundation possible.
Right. Well, thank you so much again, Matthew. I appreciate you coming to hang out with me today, man. I had a really great time. Did you have any final last words? Anything you want to say last to the people before we start signing out of this thing?
Well, what we know to do and the ease of doing it are two very different things, and so that's what I'm trying to help with. That this is such a worthwhile thing, and just because we know it doesn't mean we do it. But I would encourage people to at least take one aspect of these and just try to improve and see what it is like, see how it can be to live in the way we're supposed to.
I love it. Thank you so much again, guys. And with that being said, we're going to wrap up this episode of Pete vs. Anxiety. You guys know where to find me. I'm Pete vs. Anxiety. I'm on X all the way down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify all the way down to Pandora Radio. And as I always say, it costs nothing, absolutely nothing to be kind to somebody. One kind act you can do can save someone's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete vs. Anxiety signing off saying, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey, how's your mental health?